Man, this Mega Everdrive is great. I wish they had a portable version for like Game Boy or something. Well, that's convenient.
Hello and welcome back to the VideoGame O.R, the series where we show you the process in repairing and restoring all things gaming. Today we'll be going over the features and initial setup for the GB Everdrive X3, an entry-level Game Boy and Game Boy Color flashcart designed by the Everdrive's creator, Crix. So without any further ado, let's begin the unboxing. Now, I received this package from the Amazon, so I'm assuming that's why it came in an inconspicuous brown box. But rest assured, we do in fact have the Everdrive hidden inside. Taking a closer look at the packaging, it appears the GB Everdrive X3 comes in a custom Nintendo DS case, which should help it blend in with the rest of your DS collection. Looking at the back of the case, you're presented with a list of the features provided with the flashcart, along with a QR code for firmware updates, in addition to a list of hardware stats for the original Game Boy. Opening up the case, we're presented with yet another QR code for firmware updates. You know, in case you've forgotten about the exterior one. We also have the piece de resistance being the GB Everdrive itself. The cartridge comes wrapped in a plastic film to protect it from anything trying to have their way with it during transit. Removing its plastic prison, we can get a good look at this device. The front of the cartridge comes with a label donning the Everdrive logo along with Crix's website URL. The back side of the cartridge is rather barren, simply noting the board revision along with the Crix and Everdrive logos. In contrast, the top of the cartridge features a microSD card slot for loading the firmware and storing your ROMs, as well as a small push button used to reset the cartridge and save games. Unfortunately, the X3 model doesn't support solely in-game saving, so you'll need to press the button before turning off the system in order for your progress to be saved to the SRAM. More on that during the demonstration. The Everdrive GB X3 is compatible with all systems that have the ability to play Game Boy and Game Boy Color cartridges, including but not limited to the 1989 Game Boy, the 1998 Game Boy Color, assuming yours is made of air, the 2001 Game Boy Advance, the 2003 Game Boy Advance SP, and the GameCube's Game Boy Player. Unfortunately, this flashcard is not compatible with the original Nintendo DS or DS Lite. Now, that should cover the unboxing and console compatibility, therefore let's move on to copying over the games and firmware so that we can get this thing up and running. First, we'll need to download the firmware files from Crix's website. To do this, navigate to the download section, followed by the Everdrive GB subdirectory. From there, select the X series directory, then download the archive for the latest firmware revision. Typically, it's the bottommost option. With the firmware downloaded, insert a microSD card into your computer and format it under FAT32. Once formatted, open or extract the archive and copy the GBC system folder to the root of your freshly formatted SD card. At which point you can copy over any of your Game Boy or Game Boy Color backups as well. You can store your ROMs within subfolders for organizational purposes if you prefer. However, I do not, so these will just be in the root. With your games and firmware stored on your SD card, you can eject it from your computer and insert it into your Everdrive to test out. However, before we do that, let's see today's featured comment. This video's featured comment was brought to you by RY9, who said, "I really love that kind of video, even though I only have a PS2, but it's fun to watch." Thanks for your comment, RY9. If you're new to the OR, be sure to subscribe and say a few words down below for a chance to have it featured in a future episode. Now, back to the tutorial. With your SD card prepped, insert it into the Everdrive's SD card slot with the card's label facing the front of the cartridge. Then insert the cartridge into your compatible console of choice and turn it on. Once you get past the Nintendo boot screen, you'll get a warning stating that the settings are reset. Go ahead and just press any button to continue. At which point you should get a message stating the operating system is being loaded and initialized. From there, you'll be greeted with the Everdrive's main menu, where you'll be able to view all games stored on the SD card. Use the D-pad to navigate the menus, the A button to make selections, and the B button to return. When you go to select a game, you'll be presented with the game menu. From here, you can select and start the chosen game, enter Game Genie cheat codes, and view the selected ROM's info. Loading a game from the Everdrive is extremely quick, taking less than a second. I'm also glad to report that there were no auditory or visual abnormalities for any of the games I tested with this cartridge. Now back to that thing I mentioned earlier about saving with this cartridge. When you go to save your progress in-game, do so normally. However, don't shut the system off immediately afterwards, as in order for your save to register, you'll need to press the little button on the top of the cartridge first to go back to the Everdrive menu. Once the menu is loaded, you can turn off your system and have your save game intact. When it comes to Game Boy Color or homebrew titles, the process to load and play is exactly the same. However, note that the Game Boy Color software will only work on systems that support GBC cartridges natively. Sadly, that means you can't play Game Boy Color titles on the original or Super Game Boy. And with that, you've now successfully set up your GB Everdrive to play all your Game Boy and Game Boy Color backups in one place. So if you enjoyed, remember to leave a like and subscribe so that you don't miss any future episodes of VideoGame O.R. And if you want to directly help support the creation of future O.R. episodes, please consider becoming a channel member for access to exclusive content, our members-only Discord channel, and so much more. Additional information in the description down below. With that, I'll see you in the next one.